I'll go ahead and go over the process I went through in determining what Axies to pick. I'll go over team composition and what you should be looking for as a beginner. Let's get started. So this is what you'll first see when you go to AxieInfinity.com. Go ahead and click on Marketplace for starters, so you can go take a look at the Axies you're going to want to get. So when you first go to the Axie Marketplace, you're going to be presented with this page here. It's basically just the latest sales and the latest listed Axies. You're going to want to go ahead and click on Marketplace here. And this is where you'll see the listings. So a couple of things first. When it comes to Axie Infinity, you're going to need 3 Axies to get started. You're going to have to understand the different Axie types. For a beginner, I suggest, or at least what I went with, and I suggest this for other beginners too, is to secure a very strong tank as your first Axie. And then for your second and third Axie, probably a good midliner, and then a high damage Axie in the back. And so you'll see how the team formation works when I actually pull up the game later. But for now, we'll want to keep that in mind. So for your first Axie, we're going to want to take a look at the tanks. And I already purchased a couple of Axies myself. We could take a look at these real quick. These are the 4 Axies that I have. I have my tank here, this green one. This purple Reptile type here. This is my midliner. This is a sort of balanced role with a good shield and health stats, but also a good attack stats. Just a balanced role. It's not high damage or high tank. It's just right in the middle. A good role for when your tank gets taken out and you need someone who is strong enough to hold the line, but can also dish out some damage. Pretty much that's what it is. That's what a midliner's role is pretty much. At least in this case. So let's go back to the marketplace. So you'll see here that a lot of these floor Axies, 0.029, 0.029, 0.029, these are pretty much, you want to stay away from these. A lot of these are probably going to be not so valuable for fighting. Like, let's just take a look at this first one. You'll see that they have a bunch of mixed properties here. If you look at a pure Axie like this one, you'll see they're all the same color, they're all the same type. This is a beast type. So you want to stick, at least for your first time around, you want to stick to these pure types. And you can go ahead and filter for the pure type in the Axie marketplace by going here and then just clicking purity to 6. So now all of these are going to be pure types. And since we're looking at tanks, let's go ahead and click plant. The plant type is basically that green type that I showed you. And this is going to be your tank. Now, if you go to purity 6 and you select any of these, you'll probably notice that they have all of the same. So this is a plant type, 100% purity here. Now you're going to want to take a look at the different abilities that they have, because this is what's most important. You're going to want to understand what these abilities do, what they're for, and what you're really going for. As a tank, you want something with a very strong defense. And so I already secured a tank that I think is a good one. And see, these are some of these are good. Like, I highly recommend this cactus move right here, as well as this pumpkin move, and even this serious move, this vegetable bite, October tree, and prickly trap. For the tail, I recommend actually getting this here. So for the tail, I recommend getting a carrot hammer or the spicy pepper, one of those. And if you want to take a look at the different Axies that actually have these properties, now you might want to write these down or just copy these somewhere. Pumpkin, Sirius, Cactus, and Carrot, with these each of these abilities for those types. And you're going to go ahead and click on parts here, and you'll be able to start typing in those different parts. So you start with Pumpkin, October tree. You could just go ahead and type in October tree here. Boom. And so all of the Axies here are going to have at least that ability. Now you're going to want to add up the rest of these: vegetable bite and prickly trap. So vegetable bite, serious vegetable bite, and then prickly trap, cactus prickly trap. And you can see that even with just these 3, the floor already rose a little bit, 0.035, 0.047. But let's take a look at the last move. The carrot hammer is the other one. Boom. Now you can see that the floor itself is a bit higher than the in the default floor. It's at 0.05 right now. Pretty much all of these are practically the same when it comes to getting a tank. Now you might want to also consider getting an Axie that has 0 breeds. So basically every Axie has a maximum amount of breeds that it can have. And you're going to want to watch out for this because every time you breed, the next breed is going to get more expensive. So the first breed is going to probably be about 300 SLP, and we'll go over what SLP is in a moment. That's basically the in-game currency, or one of the in-game currencies. And then after the first breed, the second breed is going to be about 500 SLP, and then from there it goes to 700, and it just keeps increasing. So you're going to want to try to secure an Axie that has 0 breeds. And you can take a look here after you filter for 0 breed count and 6 pureness along with the parts. Now we have Axies that we're looking for. Pretty much any of these I'd recommend. Probably just get the cheapest ones that you can find, unless you're looking into breeding. But I don't recommend looking into breeding unless you understand the genetics of the game a little bit more. Just to give you a sneak peek of that, you'd probably want to download an extension that allows you to see the different genetics, as you can see here. And taking a look at this one, holy god, this one's 100% genetics here. This is actually a really good Axie. And if anyone can, oh well, look, someone already took it. Yeah, that's to be expected. This is what you call a steal right here. 100% plant genetics, and it was at the floor with the rest of them. You'll see that all of these other ones, they don't have 100% genetics. You can see these the red and yellow and blue labels right there. That means that it has mixed genetics, so it's not exactly, or mixed recessive genetics, I should say. So when it mates with another of its type or another Axie, it has a chance of breeding something with those recessive genetics. Now this one here, it's pretty much guaranteed to breed an Axie that has pure plant genetics, assuming the other parent is also pure like that. And you can see the rest of these are all mixed as well. All mixed. And if we find the next one that has pure genetics like that, we can get an idea of what the floor price for that is. Let's just take a look real quick. I imagine breeders would really, really want that one. So I can imagine that going for quite a bit. Anyway, I'm not finding another pure like that. We'll continue on. But yeah, so get back to what we were talking about. You're going to want to grab any of these floor Axies. Because besides those genetics that I just gave you a sneak peek on, pretty much they all have the same moves. They all are probably going to have 61 health with 31, 31, 41. And you can just take a look, 61, 31, 31, 41. And along with the same moves, you have October Tree, Vegetable Bite, Prickly Trap, and Carrot Hammer. Same moves all across. Same moves, same stats. So when it comes to using them as a tank in your matches, they're pretty much all the same. So you're just going to want to secure the cheapest one here. So this one, boom. If that one's sold out, just try to get one of these. And you can see there's 78 pages of these guys. There's just a ton. Even if you go to page 10, it's not much higher. So we were pretty much stacked on these. The tanks are one of the most common. This is actually one of the most common tank abilities or tank compositions available. So you'll probably notice that as you're playing, tons of other players use this exact tank. Now moving on to the next Axie that we're going to talk about. I'm going to be talking about my midliner, which is this guy right here, my Reptile. And so let's go back to the marketplace. You're going to want to clear filters, filter by Reptile. Same thing, you're going to want to avoid these floor reptiles. You are going to want to select breed count to 0. Set pureness to 6. And now you're looking at reptiles that are a little more valuable in terms of their worth in a fight. You can take a look at this. Let's just take a look at the first one, which is already sold, but just to give you an idea. I wouldn't recommend this one. This Critical Escape Wall Gecko card here, great move. This will pretty much make your reptile just like a brick wall. High defense once this is added, and I believe these stack, so that would be just crazy defense there. Unfortunately for my Axie, I wasn't able to get that specific ability, but I highly recommend these 3 abilities. If you're able to get that Wall Gecko ability here, I would recommend getting that. But if you can and you're on more of a budget, then I would recommend going ahead and switching it out for this tiny swing here, where you can deal 150% damage after round 4. So it kind of sets it up for a really good mid to end game. And let's go ahead and filter for those real quick so we can see the floor there. And then let's take a look before that. Let's take a look at that Wall Gecko that I was showing you, and just so you can see the price on that. Those are a bit pricey. Critical Escape Wall Gecko. So the floor on that is 0.13, and there's only 6 left. So you can see that You can see why it was kind of hard to get one of those. The one I got was a lot cheaper than this, and I wasn't trying to put in 0.13 before I really got more experience in the game. Now thinking back on it, and based on what I've played so far, I would highly recommend this specific and this exact composition here if you can get it. And I mean, you're not going to lose here. I mean, there's not really much left. You get one of these and the floor is instantly risen. So highly recommend that. But if we took this out and we replaced it with the tiny swing that I'm recommending, and really if you look at here with these 3 filters and you just start looking through these, you can go ahead and probably pick most of these and just look for that 4th card, something that looks appealing to you to swap out based on your experiences and whatnot. But let's go ahead and filter in for that tiny swing there. Let's look at the floor for this exact composition here. So we're already looking at a floor here of 0.115. That's pretty crazy because you can see I got this at 0.09. So it's already risen quite a bit. Once again, this is pretty much at the same price as the other one. So if you're going to pick between this one and the other one, I would highly recommend the one with the wall gecko. In fact, I might even look into selling this guy, swapping out for that wall gecko. 0.13. That would be nice to have. That would be. Anyway, moving on to the next one now. We've gone over our tank, which is our front line. We've gone over our reptile here, which is our midliner. Now we're going to go over our high damage roles. And I'm going to go over 2 different types here. We're going to have our beast type and our bird type. You're going to see a lot more beasts probably out in the battlefield. These are very popular high damage type. Birds can probably dish out a little more damage, but they're a lot more squishy. So you got to watch out for that. I would highly recommend the beast. If you're just starting, the beast is probably going to be a little more reliable. The bird will require a little more finesse. So just something to watch out for. I will go over both of them right now though. And let's take a look here. So you can see another pure beast. We're going to want to go ahead and make sure we add those filters. Basic filters to begin with. Pretty much every time you're searching for Axies of any class, you're going to want to most likely set breed count to 0. Unless you just don't care about breeding, you can go ahead and set that higher if you want. And let's start going over the parts. Compared to this one, you can see here we have this move 75, 105, 70, 105. So this is actually really, really high damage output we're getting here. These 2 Nutcracker type cards, Nutcracker, when you combine them, they deal 120% damage more. And you get these, it's pretty often that you're going to have 2 of these in your hand. And so you can combine any of these 2. You're instantly getting 120% more damage than what you normally would. Well, you're dealing 120% damage, not getting 120% more. So just keep that in mind. That's a difference. So you're getting 20% more damage from your default, from what I understand. And then when you combine any other 2 cards with this card here, you're guaranteed a critical strike on this last one. And so this can pretty much dish out about 200 damage with its critical strike pretty much every time. And then this card here is a great energy stack on this. If you're playing this card before you play this single combat Ronin card, then you're pretty much guaranteed to get an energy back for one of your critical hits, along with a nice attack here. And so really it's just great synergy with these abilities here. I really highly recommend these. And so let's go ahead and filter that and check out the floor price for that. And this is one of those ones that's a really, really popular high damage compositions. And so you're going to see that there's actually, we're kind of flooded with these, so which is good for us, which is good for the buyers. You have a lot of options here. They're not as expensive as the other types that I recommended. With the midline reptile that that's getting pricey, but with these beasts, the floor is pretty cheap. We're only looking at 0.05 for any of these, and you can just go ahead and pick up the floor here. If you're into the breeding, there might be some good deals here if you're into that. And then, if you're into the breeding, you're going to want to pick up the plugin Freaks Axie extension. So that's going to give you this little menu here. Okay, so I'll leave a link to that in my description if you're interested in that. But let's go ahead and just take a look at the first one here. Pretty much you're going to get these stats, 3141, 3161. Exact same stats here, exact same abilities. You can see I paid 0.057, and this guy is going for about 0.052. Oh, he's already sold actually, so. Same, the next one's going for 0.052. So I highly recommend this one if you're getting started. Let's go ahead and take a look at that bird now though. So as I said, the bird class can probably dish out a little bit more damage. You can see here 110, 110, 130, 120. And You can also Ill Omen applies Jinx to your target, which prevents them from using a critical hit for the next 2 rounds. This can be really effective against the beast type, as you saw. They have those critical hit cards. This can be effective towards a lot of the fish types who tend to get critical hits. Headshot here disables the target's horn cards the next round. Another thing that's highly effective against beasts, because their horn card is, let's take a look like here. Their horn card is where they get Ivory Stab, which is what's giving them the confirm this is where they're getting the energy from. So disables their ability to use that. And then with the fishes and with the tanks, with all these others, highly effective. You have this kind of kamikaze type ability here, dishing out 120 damage, but you're taking 30% of your max HP to yourself. And this is a 0 energy card. So this is a highly valuable card in my opinion. 0 energy, 120 damage, and you're only taking 30% damage to yourself. Keep in mind that if an enemy is able to get to your bird, there's a high chance that they're going to take you out in one hit. Birds are really squishy, and so using them as a sacrificial kind of kamikaze role can be very useful and very rewarding. You can see I got this for 0.08, so let's go ahead and take a look at the floor now. I believe it's already at 0.1, so this is one of those more specialized roles, as I said. It's not going to be easy to pull off because they're very squishy, and you may have to consider, altering the tank reptile composition, or maybe you might have to get a tankier reptile. If you're able to get the reptile with that wall gecko, that might make this a lot more doable. So keep that in mind. I have run this composition with the reptile I have now, with the 120% more damage after 4 rounds, and that card's not pulling as much defense as we need to keep this bird alive. So that wall gecko move might be what we need. Either way, let's take a look at this. Pureness 6, Breed 0. Let's start pulling these out. And so this is another situation similar to our reptile, where the floor is already at 0.1, and there's only a handful of these Axie types available, or Axies with the bird Axies with these abilities. We're looking at 0.1 floor, which is already higher than what my bird's at. I was looking at selling my bird. Actually, this is my bird here. I just have him at 1 ETH. Highly doubt it's going to sell at that unless something crazy happens, but I just have him there right now. I might just delist him or whatever, but I was thinking of selling him and maybe using the profits to get another pure reptile and then start getting into breeding or something like that. Still got to think about it. If I do get into the breeding more, I'll do another video on that, so that'll be interesting. Something to watch out for. But yeah, that's the bird composition there that I recommend. If you can get that, I know it's a bit pricey for starters, but if you're just starting out, like I said, you're going to want to go ahead and get this composition here. Get the beast, tank, reptile, beast. Okay, tank, reptile, beast. And these 3 in that order.